I'm officially called, and Dina, will you do the roll call? You're not ready?
No.
Okay. Can I go ahead then to the agenda approval and move something around? So instead of
do roll call, just give me 1 second. Right?
Okay.
Sorry. I'm trying to open a million windows at once. Where's your list? Member roster. Okay. Terry Whitaker.
here.
Jane Brill. Absent. Debbie Yates.
Here.
Christina Costable. Absent.
Yes.
Melinda Tam.
Here.
Daryl McCool.
Here.
Marcia Wren.
Here.
Claire Dixon.
Here. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? I want to move the bus shelter in 5B up above to be our first new business item so that Katie, we don't take up more of her time than we need to. If that's okay with everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then before we get into public comment, I just wanted to make an announcement. I got a note from Jane Brill that she is resigning. She and her husband will be leaving Superior. So we will, sadly, be losing a third member to moving. Like, they leave Superior. But anyway, I just thought you all should know that that's why Jane is not here tonight. Is there anyone in the public that has public comment? Oh, public? No comments? About? Yeah, just have the item is fine. Yeah. So on to new business and updates, and I would like to introduce everybody to Katie Olson. She's on the Historic Commission, and she's actively involved in all of the, or knowing a lot, has a lot of information about all the historic photos that are in the Lost Superior book, and the photos that we have access to. And since we as a group are looking toward doing historic photos on the bus shelters this time, we thought it would be great to have her here to give us a little information on cost of photos, how to get access to the photos and things like that. So with that,
sounds good. How many bus shelters? What is the plan?
Well,
how many there are?
We have talked about doing 6 bus shelters. So the 2 here, 2 at the top of Rock Creek Boulevard and 2 at the bottom, sort of the gateways we were thinking. But then I drove through town, and there's one at the corner of Rock Creek Parkway and Indiana that is tons of foot traffic. All the kids walk by. It's on the way to the pool. So I wonder if we just want to do a more careful assessment and not just we probably have the money to fund more, so I'd love to look at that as an opportunity as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, we're really excited that, you know, Daryl and I have been talking about going. She's better about coming to our meetings than we are about joining you guys, but we're excited to partner. I think if we can continue to kind of do this art and historic, it's going to be really great for the town. So yeah, all of the photos, we do have access. We have digital files of all the photos in the book. Really the only one that has a little bit of a catch to it would be the Louisville Historic Museum photos that they've given us the rights to for the book. We would have to pay $25, which is fine, and give them courtesy of, or image courtesy of, which is easy and should be done with all the photos anyways. Yeah. The other photos are mostly from families, and I don't think it'd be a problem we're doing another project, and I don't think it's gonna be a problem at all, as long as we just say photo courtesy of. Larry Dorsey, our chair, said that when these families gave us access to these photos for the book, it really was like a general access, like we want this to be in the town's historic, files. So So that's the only thing is getting Louisville to giving them money, and it's not all the photos, but they do have some of the really good ones. And I think the thing that I wanted to mention was the content is really, really important. So I think the photos just have to tell a story. And we want to be here to help. You know, if you guys say, we're going to do this one with this theme, then we would love to work with you on really creating a story. And you know, Boulder has them. Have you guys seen Boulders?
I didn't know they did bus shelters. I knew they had done.
And not a bunch, but like by the old hospital, and they're great. They have, so if anyone goes to Boulder, it's more of a story, right? Like not just, the photos have to have the story with them, I think, to really have them make an impact. So we would love to work with you on why these are important and not just circa 1920, you know, like really to talk about it. And one idea that I had is putting maps as well. If you guys really are going to do like tell a story with these shelters, it'd be really neat to integrate some of the maps that show the whole coal mining field, and some really neat ones with all the names of all the landowners here. So that's also just, you can get access to those and pay a certain amount to Carnegie, or I think that's a whole different direction, but I think it depends on how big of a you know, if you guys are kind of just going to do a few photos, but if you really tell a story, then you need to say, this is where, you know, things were.
So can you give us an example of that? I mean, most people are going to be driving by, so it has to be a quick impact, right? So it has to be a story told in an image, right? So, like, I mean, I guess it's possible from our initial assessment is having maybe 3 different pictures within, but only half of the bus shelter, so that there's a view through. So I like the idea of a story. I'm just not.
I guess the question is, who are you trying? I mean, I was thinking it was kind of people sitting, but maybe if it's the other way, then yes, right? So it's harder to tell the story, obviously.
Right, so I guess there are some bus stops that are going to have a lot more viewers, so if we were to have some more details, we could choose that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're looking for a
big ones.
big impact,
yeah, okay.
right.
Then maybe then big images would be better. Maps aren't gonna.
Yeah, I'm afraid of the maps
catch
with
people
too
by,
much
but
detail.
sure.
Or maybe
We
the maps
talked
are
about using maps
We
when
did
we,
talk
at the
about-
last meeting, certain ones.
A couple of basic ones.
Yeah, and before we get too far in, I just wanted to say one of our ideas, a thought was, because we have a lot going on and we don't have time tonight to do all of this, is to form a subcommittee.
Absolutely.
And so if there are folks on the Historic Commission that want to be on it, sort of like the cemetery, we can have a side group and really flesh out some of these ideas. Again, because like I was walking down the creek, the new creek area, and the bus stop is right there and you see the back of it. And
Yeah.
that would be cool with a really big image. So I think inventory needs to be made of all the bus stops and decide what ones have impact for people walking, people at the bus stop, people driving by.
Absolutely, because maybe a few would be better, big,
Exactly.
and some would be better telling a story.
Exactly.
Or something.
Like this one would be better.
Yeah.
So folks are open to that, and then forming a subcommittee and really plotting it out and making a plan.
Yep, and we can help guide on kind of the most important, the things that are the most important, the photos that are the best, the photos that are kind of the most classic. So the school, there's lots of great photos of the school is very important. The mine, of course, we have great photos of the mine, and then the depot. So yeah. Yeah, we're available to.
I'm really glad to hear you say image so often, because I want to share just a little bit of perspective. We were hoping to be able to do artistic representations somehow, either artists or standard images that are available for things like wrapping around booths, you know. And then we discovered that it was really too much. We had to have a ready resource to be able to get those wrapped if we want to do it pretty soon. because we have so much else going on this summer.
Yeah.
And then the idea was like, well, maybe we could do historical photos.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, not give you the impression that it was like a network of, that we're looking at a network of history of the whole town told through the booths. The booths, the images aren't going to last forever. The films break down. And so in the future, we'll probably revisit maybe some images again. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just coincidental that this year we really have a need for an appreciation for historical photos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one thing I just want to mention too is that just recently, I work in Boulder, that's why I keep bringing this up, but they've been wrapping their beer bins in Boulder, and it's been really cool too.
Yeah.
So just an idea.
This started because we wanted to do all of the light boxes, or the electrical boxes, but we found we couldn't do those. So then the idea of the bus shelters came about. And so, there's no end to the ideas.
The things you can wrap.
It's just,
right?
It comes down to time and money.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and we have people on our commission that would be willing to help you, so it really could be a partnership. So it sounds like you guys are busy, so.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate
no
your
problem.
time.
And the files are available. They're like,
Right.
we have them all. So the biggest thing is getting the approval and getting payment to Louisville. But we actually have I don't know if they remember that we actually have the images that so it really is just about payment, and they're small
honor
anyways.
system.
Yeah. So,
Wonderful.
okay, anything else?
That's
Is
exciting.
there a time, so, I don't know if we'll pick the subcommittee tonight, but for you guys on the Historic Commission, is there a time that works best for you? Like, I know you work during the day, so is a evening meeting a better?
I don't really know. I don't really know yet. Why don't you, you can always, so our big email, the historic you guys you can communicate through that. And maybe some people are available later, some are available during the day.
Okay.
I don't know, but
Okay.
yeah, I would think we could get 1 or 2 or 3 of us that could help.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
all right.
Does anyone else have any questions for Katie?
No.
We really appreciate you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank
all
you,
right.
Katie.
Mhm. That was easy.
We're not difficult to work with.
No.
We are occasionally. No, just, okay, so that moved out, but now let's shift gears and go back. You're right, we do officially need to vote, because we just talked about the idea of doing the historic photos at the mid-month meeting, but we need to actually have an official vote that we all are interested in pursuing the historic photos on the bus stops.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of historic photos? It's unanimous. Anyone? Okay. So it is official. And we can, are folks interested in talking about the subcommittee right now, or do you want to just email offline?
We should probably do it now while we're here.
Okay.
Definitely.
I think it sounds fun.
Yeah,
I would.
So the idea of the subcommittee is you guys will do pretty much all the work to determine what the bus shelters are gonna look like. And whether that's hiring a graphic designer to do the design work, or hiring an artist to help with the storytelling, picking, helping select which images are gonna be used, and then bringing that back to CAPS for a formal vote. Yes, this is what this bus shelter on this corner is gonna look like, so on and so forth. And then we move forward with the actual printing and installing of the images.
And we will work with you on budgeting and, okay.
Yeah, and all finalizing and all that stuff.
Yeah, and one of the first things probably would be bus stop inventory, and just be sure that we've got the best ones picked.
One question, this lady that was just here, she's on the Superior Historic Commission? Okay, so it's not a Boulder
No.
organization, okay.
Yeah.
And who is gonna be the committee again? Rachel?
Terry, Melinda, and Claire.
Okay. be, required to have, public notice, since there'll be 3 or more of you. Then I'll coordinate and arrange all of those, and, we'll need to figure out who's taking meeting notes and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Well, and whoever takes the lead should work with the Historic Commission to see if there are folks that want to be on.
Yeah, and I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do
All right. All right, on to the main event, Superior Spectacular Update. Do we have the latest concepts from the artists?
I do, and thought I'd show them on the screen, so the viewers watching could see them. Full screen open, in the light. Okay, so this is a similar packet to what you received last at your mid-month meeting, and so I'm going to point out a lot of the updates. And how much time do we have? We probably have just about 5 to 10 minutes on this topic.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Move
keep
fast.
track of the time.
Talk fast.
Yes. All right, so I just wanted to show you, this is the kind of branding page. The update is here in the top right corner. We mailed the postcard, and raise your hand if you got your postcard in the mail. How about anyone in the audience?
You didn't get one?
I still didn't get mine. I stole
I
one.
got
from you.
yours.
I have heard from a few people they haven't received theirs.
It's really nice, I like it.
Yeah, so if anyone wants more, they're right here.
Okay.
We've updated the Facebook event page cover with the logo. And then we are working on printing posters that will look like this one here. And it'd be great if you all can take a few and put them up around town. We're going to be doing little stickers as well that we'll hand out, I think at 4th of July, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here on the 3rd.
Okay.
On the 3rd?
On the 3rd.
The stickers will be here on the 3rd.
Oh, I thought we were handing them out on the 3rd. I'm like,
No.
okay.
We'll be doing some Instagram posts. We're working on the t-shirt graphic that will be printed live at the event. And then some wayfinding signage for the event for you to find yourself around the event.
Like around the event or to the event?
Around the event, like within the event.
So are we gonna have the signs like we do for Chili Fest?
Yep, but that's already all designed.
That's done?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we just use all the signs we already have for other events. So this is just wayfinding signage with our graphic on it around the event.
Okay.
Marketing strategy is all the same from your last packet. The site plan, it's just changing every day, so we don't have any updates from your last packet quite yet. So this is the same page as your last packet. Couple updates on the food and beverage. We are having a real tough time getting food trucks. There's a lot of events happening that day, and we're really struggling. So Castle's working really hard on that. Bella Luna, which is a new gelato bicycle here, that's in Superior resident owned, very exciting, she'll be coming. And then one of the artists, as you may recall from your last packet, he's creating some fun artistic ramen that will be free and available. And someone had a question at a mid-month meeting about what this activated charcoal is that he'll be using. I don't know if anyone remembers that
Yeah.
question, but it's just like charcoal that you get in your toothpaste. It's an activated charcoal, and he's just using it so that the ramen can be black.
It's edible though.
Yeah, just like in toothpaste.
Toothpaste, yeah, it's really
Well, toothpaste is not edible, but
charcoal.
this charcoal is. It's made out of bamboo, apparently.
Okay.
So it is edible, yeah.
Okay.
Happy Cities, I'm trying to serve some popcorn in the spirit of a festival as a spectacular. And then, as we all know, the Rotary is hosting the beer and wine. And BMOCA, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, is having a booth, which I will describe a little bit later, but they're gonna give out free coffee. Yeah. Carol.
The Rotary, the drinks, do we get to decide what beer and wine is served, or is that just what they decide?
Probably not, only because they're trying to get it for free and so that they can cut down on their costs. And
Okay.
if there were any choices, I'm not sure, like if they're picking one over another, I don't know.
Well, so, for example, I mean, could we ask for craft beer and not like Budweiser or something like that?
I mean, I could tell them we had some preferences if there were any, in case
Well, they
they
don't
have any
ever do-
choices.
I mean,
Well, I
they
don't
all
know
craft
what, I don't
beers
know what they do. I'm
For
just
Beer
asking.
Fest, they do all craft beers. They don't do anything that's not.
But this is a
Yeah.
little bit different than
Yeah,
the.
I think they're gonna just try to get either wholesale or free.
Exactly, where they can get it free so they make money.
But if they have a choice, I can suggest to them the choices if there are any.
Yeah, I mean, nice light summer beers, but, you know, if it's possible, Colorado beers, I think, would be a preference for me personally.
And, I'm sorry if you guys discussed this, but if we can't get the food trucks, are we going to approach the local restaurants?
Oh, that's already part of the plan.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think that we won't get food trucks. It's just that we're having a hard time. We
Okay.
don't have a lot of choices.
Okay.
Because of the
Oh.
busy weekend, yeah.
Well, did we reach out to the local?
I've been working up a list of like Tibet, all of the ones that are around, the French Twist, which I see at a lot of events locally. So I've given, if other folks have a list of food trucks they like. that
Well,
are
not even
independent.
food trucks, but if we get stuck,
Yeah, that's my.
Oh, yeah, like
the
we
worst,
get
the
stuck, do
worst
we go
case
to a-
scenario is
the
we have one
barbecue
food
place?
truck and everybody comes from Superior and they're kind of like, so.
Well,
Well, yeah, definitely, we're trying to get whatever options we can,
For food.
including the restaurants in the marketplace
Okay.
that
Okay,
may
that's what, yeah.
That,
be
that's
able
the
to
biggie.
have a food truck or a food tent.
A
Okay.
food tent.
and to your point, right, because if you go to the Boulder Farmers Market, all of those vendors are tents.
Right.
Like Sister's Pantry
That's
amazing.
and things like that. So, you know, it could just be a tent versus a food truck. but
Right.
Okay, cool.
food.
Thank you.
Just a quick update on the beer and wine garden. We have 2 artists that are going to make these fabulous custom greenery decorative elements and lights for some excitement, even though it might not be quite dark yet. And just make a really fun atmosphere rather than just tables and a bar. We may have already had this slide last time. We have a DJ, live screen printing. We have secured the rental of this peace tent, which is going to be somewhat of a gateway to the festival so people can walk under it and have a little bit of an experience there. As you know, Salida Circus is coming with performers and their trapeze. We have partner tents. CAPS we just listed here, even though you're not a partner, you're the presenter. Happy City, as I mentioned already, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art is having a ceramic artist make ceramic mugs on site, custom for people, and then serving their custom coffee. Museum of Outdoor Arts in Inglewood is lending us their huge sculpture, inflatable sculptures. There'll be end caps to the event. And they do light up, but I don't know if it'll be dark enough to enjoy that.
Can we go to 9?
Yeah. Here is the information about the BMOCA tent, and I see that it's really small here. I don't know if anyone close up can read that to us for any detail. I'm having a hard time seeing that myself.
The top text?
No, the
top.
underneath
The
it.
description.
Bottom, okay.
Can anyone read that?
I think I can read that. Let's see. Kazuziba is a sculptor and potter from Kobe, Japan, who currently lives and works in Boulder, Colorado. Oba is dedicated to creating beautiful natural forms that function as everyday wear to be used in the home. His background as a chef distinctly influences his work as he maintains a consistent focus on the relationship between his pots and the food that will occupy them. The interactive performance piece at the Superior Spectacular would be intended as a statement on environmental mindfulness and the reduction of waste. It will feature an array of, that's where it is.
Okay, and then I just opened it on my close screen, so I
Okay.
can finish reading it.
Okay, so he's going to make coffee cups for people there.
Yeah, let me read the next page. So Kazu's handmade mugs and vessels that can be used to make and serve coffee will offer responsibly sourced coffee free of charge to all passersby who bring their own reusable mug or thermos or who purchase one of his creations. We live in a community where people like to know where their food comes from, whether or not sustainable practice is being used, and how the materials that they use are sourced. In this performance piece, everything we use will be mindfully sourced. Any waste created will be composted or recycled afterwards. Most importantly, not a single disposable cup will be used. As Oba says, I'm a potter. I think how I can make a difference in my little world, and this is one idea. So the fun thing about this is BMOCA is sponsoring a portion of his activity, so that was a really good partnership with them. And another thing to note, the Museum of Outdoor Arts is lending us for free their sculptures, which usually have a cost, so.
That's cool.
Yeah. This is the final list of the artists who will have the immersive art installations. Stephen Frost, Andrea Sluzarski, Ladies Fancy Work, Rebecca Vaughn, Lori Links Murphy, Museum of Reinterpretation, and Andrew Novick. And the the design concepts that you didn't see last time are also in the next few pages. Stephen Frost, did you see that? Okay, so Stephen Frost has, his is called Putting It All Together, and he has a narrative below which I can read. Oops. Putting It All Together is a large-scale woven installation that encourages interaction and storytelling. Participants will walk into an immersive environment of woven fabrics constructed from traditional materials like yarn and sequins, and unconventional fabric repurposed from local thrift stores. Inside this immersive space, participants will be encouraged to weave with the host artist using a backstrap loom and repurposed fabrics. The artist will also ask them to share their stories of living in and around Superior. On the three corners of the room will be cell phone mounts for participants to take their own selfies and share their hashtag Superior Spectacular moment on the social media. And here's some example images on the next slide. These are some other things that he's done. Another example image. Images, plural. And then next one, Stephen in action. Stephen, I believe, is from Boulder. And then next, Rebecca Vaughn. This is also a new concept that you didn't see last time. Project description. Let me blow this up so I can read it for you.
I love her title. Show me how to be unapologetic.
Okay. Show Me How to Be Unapologetic is an installation which highlights the relationship between nature and the artificial. Completely lining the walls of the tent will be silver lame fabric sewn with ruffles, which will create a shimmery, enticing surface. The slightest breeze or oscillating fan causes the ruffle to float and move. Hanging from the tent lintels and crossbars suspended in front of the ruffles are dozens of marquee lit sculptures. See below, probably the next image. The sculptures have hints of fluorescent pink, found hardware, LEDs, and electronics showcasing their artificiality. These sculptures will hang from screw eyes attached to chains with S-hooks, which will make them easy to install and remove at a moment's notice. Floating as a center point in the tent will be one solitary green sculpture festooned with astroturf and other artificial plant materials. This green element will contrast in both material and color to the surrounding walls. creating a tension that speaks of our relationship to real/artificial, the wild/controlled, and the many other constructs of polarity. So here's some more images that she has provided. And then these are just her specifications that are in the small text there. Some more examples of some sculpture she's done. Okay, and then the next is Andrea Sluzarski. And hers is called Drawing from Nature. The narrative is she's still working out, but the general idea is it'll be a collaborative community coloring experience with outlines pre-drawn, including reference to Superior, the surrounding areas of Colorado. More to come. Very good. Let's see the next page. Andrew Novick, we already saw this. This is the ramen, the specialty ramen. Some more images of his past installations and experiences. Lori Lynx Murphy called Cloudscape, you saw that last time. Some design concepts here. Museum of Reinterpretation, you also saw last meeting. And Ladies Fancy Work, I believe you saw that as well. There we go. Great.
Oh, I'm so glad you have
comments or
so many.
thoughts?
I'm so glad you have so many. Is that
Yeah.
7?
That's 7 artists, including the BMOCA. No, BMOCA makes 8. The Museum of Outdoor Arts makes 9, although they're not using a tent.
Right.
Happy City is 10, and then CAPS is 11. So we'll have 10 tents, and then the 11th, then let's call that the huge inflatable sculptures.
And then the artists that are
Yes.
at the Beer and
Yeah,
Wine
and then
Garden.
2 artists at the Beer and Wine Garden. Thank you.
Oh, that's
And then
great.
a DJ, so music art,
And the screen art.
and the screen art and performance art with the Salida Circus.
I'm completely blown away.
Yeah,
That's my,
exactly.
that's beyond the expectations.
Get the people there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so just a quick note about getting the people there. We have over 550 people that have marked interested on our Facebook page. So that's so exciting. And then we're about to send out a campaign for all of you, all of the trustees, and hopefully some of our other advisory committees to share the Facebook event on personal pages, because that's how it starts to spread. When everyone shares the event, then their people see it, and then their people see it, and then their people see it. So it just is like a rolling thing. And so we've got 550 people interested without even asking all of you to share the event yet. So it's very exciting.
And I did ask out my weekly chamber leads group if they'd be interested in some type of special presentation, not just about this event, but about everything that's going on with this committee, and they did seem to be interested in something like that.
So one thing I just was realizing, the coffee mug component, so that's a very cool thing, and we might want to make sure that that's noted in the literature, because if he wants to be successful, people obviously can buy his mugs, but have people bring their own mugs too.
Oh, sure. Good
A
point.
great idea.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, we are making sure that the bar is zero waste, that we're doing compostable cups and things like that.
We could try. The town has steered away from completely zero waste at our event, so I'll look into that and just see if we can do that or not at this event.
Okay. I would like that we request heavily that we do. I don't want, I just did an event of 500 people, and we had 2 boxes of trash, and everything else was compost. So I would think that we could make an effort to make sure that this happens. Yes?
I did not see on that postcard hosted by Cultural Arts and Public Spaces. Is there a reason?
No, only just that we were just trying to promote 2 events which is an unusual thing for us to do. So we're just trying to tag on. And
It is on the event, if you go to the event that's posted on Facebook.
it was really just an oversight
Yes.
over
I think it gives it a homegrown nature that makes it more attractive. Not that all those things are not homegrown, but
I'll
Is
make
it-
sure
is
it's
it on the
all
poster?
other promotional stuff, so thank you.
Well, you know, like the Boulder Creek
Is it on
Fest,
there? The poster?
I'm not sure, I'll look at it later, thank you.
like Boulder
I'll take
Creek
that.
Fest is a commercial endeavor. So we kind of like to differentiate that it is just volunteer, basically, sponsored by CAPS.
It's not exactly volunteer, but.
Not volunteer.
it's homegrown.
But it's homegrown, it's not like Boulder Creek Fest where they pay somebody, you know, $100,000 or the Boulder
Right.
Boulder even or whatever, where they
Yeah,
pay
or
them.
like Louisville's Art Festival is, a consultant that does that. as well.
Exactly.
Sure, yeah, I'll make sure to put that on the remaining promo, we just.
Okay, any other thoughts, questions about the main event before we talk about the prairie dogs?
Are we doing the prairie dogs at the main event?
Well, that's the piece that we
Oh,
need to
okay.
talk about next, that's on the,
Yes,
So-
I'm trying very hard to get those cut, so as soon as I get you an update, we'll.
okay. Do we want to do that more simplified design that I saw, that I passed around to everybody? That way we could,
Yeah, it's up to you.
Make sure
If you'd
that-
like to do the smaller version.
what do people think if we did you know, a smaller, more simple design?
Kids are gonna paint it, or? what
They
are
can
they
paint
gonna
it, they could collage it, basically they
do?
could
Just
do
have a
any,
lot of art supplies and they can just choose.
yeah, and they
how
can
to
do whatever they want to.
Are you gonna have some examples already done, like maybe Marcia could do?
I think
one
so, and
for-
what I was envisioning that we drill a hole maybe on a stick and you could just have like a tree stump be the main stand for them, so you could have a bunch of them sitting around. And you could be working on one while people come up. And if they want to take them away, that's fine too, you know, if they want to go and just do it at home, I would think
Yeah.
that would be okay too.
Would it be great if there was some inspiration from you creative types already done, so they would have some ideas?
That, yeah.
Is this the 4th of July?
No. It's, at the main event.
Oh, at the main event, oh, okay. Well, I can plan on being there, you know, pretty much the whole time, at doing that activity, painting them, showing them how to paint them, mixing colors.
So what's the size difference between the two that you?
You know what, I'm really sorry, we're running really late, so if we could work those details
Yes.
out, that would be really great.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're
I talked
gonna,
too long,
we will
sorry.
talk offline about that. The bus shelter, we already talked about. The prairie dog sculpture, just a quick update, you got the agreement signed for the 4-foot?
Yes,
Okay.
and they're processing their process.
Is there an ETA on arrival?
No, not yet.
Okay.
The first thing we'll see is a digital rendering,
Okay,
and then after we approve it, the digital rendering, then we'll have more of a timeline.
okay,
Great.
great. And then just quickly on the line dance, that date didn't work, so we need to find a new date and then let the cowboy poet know as well. He's pretty open, so, a date in September that doesn't conflict with something.
Are we still gonna do it up at Wildfire Park?
I
Okay.
think the location should stay,
And are we still doing the book group?
the book group with CAPS isn't doing it, but yes, there
Okay.
will be a book group reading, yeah.
When was the,
The original date was the 28th, I think, of September, right, Debbie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that conflicts with Oktoberfest. So, and Chili Fest is the 7th, so, you know, the 14th is the next date, or the 21st. Anyone have thoughts?
I had
on-
21st.
I go with the 21st.
So
When's the author coming to the Louisville Library?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, I know he's not coming to ours, but. if
No,
you
he's
could
actually, he's coming to the Art Hub, but that's a good question.
Is that the Cowboy Poet?
No, the last Cowboys.
I don't know, I'll come,
New Pioneer.
let's just put down the 21st and we can circle back around at the end of the
Okay, to
meeting
find
if we
out.
need to.
Okay.
While I look that up, let's not waste time on that.
Okay.
Okay, so the 21st of September, if that doesn't conflict. And then on to CAPS at the 4th of July event. Last year we were doing the mural, but this year I think we want to be promoting the main event and promoting the master planning process there. And so we can have, we'll have stickers, hopefully, that we can hand out to folks. Some of the marketing materials that Dina's going to have printed, and just need to know if people are going to be around and can, sort of man the booth.
I can be there.
I can be there.
I'm gonna walk in the parade with someone, but yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll just send it around like a Google Doc or a doodle, and we can pick times so we don't all have to be there at once and take time.
So it's not really gonna be an activity, it's just information.
It's just informational, yeah. Okay, and now on to discussion item 6A, creative placemaking master planning. And-
Great. Well, as you can see, we have a guest here today.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mitchell.
Hey, Mitchell.
Mitchell Reardon from Happy City. And would you like to sit on that side or this side?
Well, I think it's easier if I also talk the screen.
Okay, great.
This. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, no, that's a nice idea.
Let's have everyone go around and introduce yourselves. Let's start here.
I'm Karen Sorlin. I work for the
Hi.
town. Committee coordinator.
I'm Marcia. We got to stand underneath the daisies, or sunflowers, I should say.
Terry.
Right?
To be Yanks.
Claire Dixon?
Bernadine?
Daryl McCool.
And we have
And then
three.
our audience, we have,
Sandy Emerald, I'm a town trustee.
Sandy Pennington, former trustee.
Wes Kwasinski, town trustee.
Hey, nice to meet you. So thank you so much for having me and for your hospitality over the last few days. It's been a whirlwind tour. You've had me running all over, biking all over. And it's been really nice to see everything that's going on here and your passion for the arts and this placemaking master plan. The level of engagement is amazing. So I'm really excited to be here. It's always nice to get that hands-on piece where we get to meet and go through these things together. I'm going to go through a few things tonight, but I thought I'd start by just giving everybody the same sort of introduction to Happy City and some of the work that we do. And maybe I'll tip the lights actually. Can you turn on half of them?
yeah, other half.
Other way, there we go. So Happy City is very grateful to have been selected to pursue this project with you, so thank you very much. But we're a consultancy that works with urban planning and design and architecture and through a well-being lens. So everything that we do is about supporting well-being, and we'll be digging into some of what that looks like later in the presentation. But what is going on here? Excuse me for 1 second. Oh, I need to actually put my USB in.
So you need something up there on the screen?
Yeah.
So that has to go, her computer doesn't go to the screen.
Oh, okay.
It has to go in that computer over there, right?
So that's this, and the USB.
Did you say?
That just works in there.
Pull it off again. Like circle arc and that's way, like. That's great. I mean, that was 3%. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
There we are. So among our array of activities, we conduct placemaking in cities and towns all around the world. And in many cases, we'll start with scenes like this and work with residents, and local businesses, and other key stakeholders to create scenes like this. And sometimes they're about opening eyes to what can be done long-term through temporary events. And in other cases, we're looking at doing things long-term right from the beginning. So in this case, this was underused road space transformed into a public plaza. And we are always really eager to assess the outcomes of this type of activity. So in this particular case, we worked with the visitors to the site to assess well-being by conducting these very short well-being intercepts. We ask people a series of questions to find out what's working, or see if they're finding the place trusting, comparing it to another location nearby that had a very similar built environment but had not undergone an intervention. And we collect all this information to create an evidence-based approach to the placemaking that we're conducting. And that part is really important. Happy City spent over a decade collecting evidence and then applying it. And then, of course, the other really important side to that is ensuring that we are meeting local needs and aligning with the local values of the places where we're working. And so sometimes that involves temporary pieces where we're just putting stuff out to change a site, and other times it's much more permanent. This has included work in Idaho Springs, Colorado, so I'm really fortunate to be leading my third project here in Colorado and getting to know a little bit more about the state and the people who live here. So that's been a really wonderful experience all around. In Idaho Springs, we conducted a series of walking tours where we sought to look at a series of sites that were up for development within the town, and also assess the amenities. And I mean, we did a lot of different mapping exercises, but one that's kind of relevant here was around assessing what civic amenities existed and how long it took to walk to each of them, and using that to help create marketable material for the municipality to use for when trying to sell these developable sites. And also coming up with some placemaking related activities such as murals. Another pretty fascinating and I would say quite challenging placemaking project was one we did on Vancouver Island in an area called the Cowichan Valley. And this is an area that's probably a similar size to Superior, but with a very different demographic. Among others, there is an indigenous tribe that lives near town, and they were noting how difficult it was to walk or cycle from their reservation into town. And it was not very far, but the biggest issue was a lack of safety. And so in this case, we worked with young people and students in town to identify some of the challenges and basically, identify these conflict areas. They led us on walking tours again to kind of identify spots that could use improvement, and this resulted in new sidewalk and brighter lights and speed bumps. So a slightly different approach, but one that had a really valuable impact and resulted in some of the students being awarded the best community design for community safety within the region. And while this is quite a different setting, it reflects our approach of doing desk research before coming to the place and trying to immerse ourselves in it and understanding what the local issues are before coming with any sort of decisions around what we're going to take forward with. And the other really important part is around local partnership and understanding. And we had the pleasure last year of working with the Denver Theater District, Black Cube, and others in conducting activities related to the Happy City Denver project. And these are always really fun and highlight how we can do events, we can do an array of different things that fall under the placemaking umbrella. And so it's been great to hear your aspirations around this and where your interests lie over the last few days, as well as a series of stakeholders. And so, yeah, over the last 3 days, we've been out and about, seeing town, seeing some of your wonderful parks, seeing the places that you value and others that you think have significant potential. Here, the overarching goal is to develop a creative placemaking master plan that establishes a common vision for the role of the arts, culture, and creativity in Superior for the next 5 years. And that 5 years, of course, is related to the funding that has been established to cover that period. In doing so, we're looking to develop a clear understanding of existing stakeholders, policies, and assets, and how they can be leveraged to strengthen creative placemaking in Superior, identify the elements that we need to celebrate, reflect, and elevate through this project, establish community buy-in, because we can put together a beautiful and more clever plan, but when Happy City leaves, if nobody here feels that it's their plan, that's where it's going to end, and we won't consider that successful, and I don't think you will either. As part of this, we need to identify locations and sites and routes where we may want to conduct these activities. have strategic value within arts, culture, and development, and use this to support economic activity. And related to that, recommend funding mechanisms that help to sustain the long-term vitality of this program. And perhaps before going any further, it's important to give you a bit of an idea of where we are and what we're thinking about when we say creative placemaking. And for Happy City, it's a people-centered approach to inform public art, culture, and events as well as public space strategy and design. And it involves citizen collaboration, social innovation, the arts, to create shared visions for places that generate surprise, delight, and a sense of belonging. And really, I think the important part here is that it's people-centered and involves citizen collaboration. These elements are really important because, we could come up with some fancy murals that might get some pictures taken, but if they don't mean anything to Superior, then, they're not really part of a placemaking plan. They're just some one-off activities. And I'll apologize for the font change. That's something that is never fun, but I guess I work on a Macintosh, and in switching to a PC, we've had
Canada to the US too.
yeah, probably. Our fonts are different.
Yeah.
And so while we've had the pleasure of touring around with each of you over the last, or with most of you over the last couple of days, I wanted to take a few minutes to do actually our first engagement activity, which is to hand out a few maps. And for you to work independently at first to pick out some of your favorite places and kind of draw them on these maps, as well as the places that you think have the most potential. And so at first this will be an independent exercise, and then we'll have a little discussion to follow that up. Pass out the markers, Tina? Two each. No, I mean, I guess, so you're going to each get 2 markers. You could just make a little note on your map saying the one that you're using for your favorite places. That way we'll know which are your current favorites and which will be potentials in the future.
Can you get 2 markers? Oh. Does it matter? No. Do colors matter?
No, please just mark.
Oh, so yellow would be current, purple would be,
Whatever you decide, yeah, just make sure that you know which is your,
so it's current and potential?
Yeah, so your favorite places right now, and the spots that you think, gee, this really does have a lot of opportunity in the future. And I think, you're all experts in this community, and, well, know your favorite places, so we'll take perhaps up to 5 minutes on this.
Oh,
So how many people want some more?
As many as you like.
Oh,
I'll collect the maps afterwards, so we'll have a little discussion. Just do a popcorn exercise where we grab a couple from some of the folks here. And then I'll take them all with me.
is there a limit to the number of favorite places we can have?
No. As long as we can tell, that it's not all just a big colory blob. The last couple of days, we've really seen some fantastic spots. And it's been a real pleasure to have you show me around. And I know that there's many more that have potential for further activation.
doing favorite places.
Do you want us just to color them or to label what they are?
If you have the time, feel free. And yeah, places, routes, the things that matter to you in this regard that you think could be covered through placemaking. We've covered a reasonable amount of them over the last couple of days. Whether those are, physical interventions or murals on walls or the ground, light installations, wayfinding, events. Potential open spaces. These are some of the things that Happy City will narrow down or prioritize. I'm just going to ask a couple of you for each, first we'll ask a couple of favorite places and sites, and then a few more potentials, and then after the meeting I'll collect these maps and we will document the information within. But Terry, why don't you tell us about one or two of your favorite places?
Well, Community Park is probably the one that I utilize the most because it's across the street from where I am. Then also there's a lot of trails, walking trails that go through there and go on to others. And so that's probably the one that I utilize the most. Then Purple Park would come after that, again, for the same reason. It's just a beautiful area. It's a great place to enjoy yourself regardless of what activity it is that you're doing. So.
Excellent. Both very nice. Melinda?
I think we're lucky that we have a lot of really beautiful neighborhood parks. So if I was to leave my house, I love all of the, the natural areas and parks. I would say the areas for the most potential are the ones in the higher density, higher traffic areas because there's more pedestrians and sometimes it's like the example you gave, sometimes it's dangerous and I think we could have some more appeal that around the commercial areas.
Mm-hmm. So kind of drawing a few things together.
Yeah.
Adding safety is something important. What about you, Marcia?
Yeah, I like the idea of putting culture and even a cultural center. That's been an idea that's been knocked around for years, and I'd really like to see it materialize. But it could be a focal point close to where people are gathering. I think ideally it should be in the downtown area, despite the fact that there's so many plans for commercial development there. But it should be serving our community, a place for young people to go for hanging out in an afternoon, or the senior club or wanting to have a class on wills and trusts or something like that, and the moms group wanting to read to babies and things. And performance space, and it could be multi-purpose space, but I think that space and then adjacent, quality outdoor places and spaces would provide a good downtown, truly.
Great, and you really touched on an important point of making spaces that work for many people who call it career home. So that's really nice. And we'll just do one more. Daryl, either favorites or potentials?
Pick somebody, yeah.
Oh.
I have. Go ahead.
Good.
Oh, okay. Well, my favorites are mostly up in the neighborhood. Of course, all of our lovely parks. I either go jogging or biking almost every day, so all of the trails I can run every single day and go a different route, which is amazing, and it's all beautiful. So I circled the trails over here, back around here. Having kids, I utilize the pools pretty heavily, and you always tend to run into people, so it's always fun. The US 36 bike path. But yeah, it looks like the potential I see is mostly, of course, in the downtown area that's not built yet. I think there's things, you know, that we could do in Original Town, and then, there's been a lot of discussion in the last year about Superior Marketplace as well. So, and the Town 15 are areas that I don't think
Hey, you know, you hit on a lot of the key assets that exist right now, and you know, I had the privilege to see some of with you over the last few days. The outdoor spaces are incredible, and yeah, there's tremendous potential in some of these other areas that you highlighted. Now, moving forward, you know, here we are, here researching, listening to everything that you have to, aspirations around and the visions you have, and also speaking with an array of other stakeholders who are also going to be important to get buy-in from and ensure that we have a plan that, you know, really reflects the community that's here and aspirations that exist. As we carry the project forward, there's going to be a number of outputs, and I'll go through a bit of a plan shortly, but the key outputs are principles that are going to guide the project, and we'll be running through those, the draft version tonight. Also be sharing the communications plan. We'll be having this well-being workshop later in the summer, pop-up event at Superior Spectacular, which is really coming together well, so I'm really excited for that. A talk and Q&A where we'll have a chance to get more residents out and share this vision with them. The needs assessment, economic impact analysis and funding mechanism recommendations, a series of best practices, and then all the feedback from public engagement. So we can consider this the maps in front of you as the first artifacts of public engagement. So that's pretty exciting. And all of this is feeding into the Creative Placemaking Master Plan, which will be realized as the schedule is right now for the early next winter. And because it was just so nice to see some of these things, I figured it would be cool to just show how important it was to have people share some of their favorite places. So, you know, we got out near the Colton Trail and seeing where the old mines were, and heard some really interesting ideas about what could be conducted there. And we were in a Superior Marketplace, and as Marcia mentioned, we saw the sunflowers out there, as well as these carts, which have a really neat view. Yeah, great. Oh, thank you. And then last night I met with SLIC, so the Youth Leadership Council, and was really excited to get some of their thoughts as well. And you know, one of the really neat things about working with young people is they often don't have the same access to third spaces that others do. You know, if you're over 21, you can go to the bar to meet your friends and that kind of thing. If you're under 21, you know, you have some parks and that kind of space, but otherwise you're at home or school or maybe a friend's place. So to get these folks involved, I think is a really exciting opportunity, and they have some great ideas as well. And so now we'll get into, you know, what the project's going to look like, or what we've been discussing over the last little while. We'll be working for the next approximately 9 months on this Creative Placemaking Master Plan. And we've broken the project into 9 modules. And so this is what a module looks like. It's approximately 4 weeks. And I note that we've kind of organized this around the fact that I'll be meeting primarily digitally with you on the final Thursday of every month. So it's not exactly 28 days, but approximately once a month. This is what a module is like. So the first part is around ideation and content creation. So we have all these different deliverables that I noted. We'll be kind of working through these activities. We'll be sharing them for staff review and starting to address their comments, and then sharing them with you, taking the feedback that we gathered through both these feedback exercises and delivering the final outputs. And this is what the whole thing looks like. And I think we have individuals, this might be a bit hard to read up on that screen. Oh, sure, yeah, you can pass those out now as well. So in the color version here, we've color-coded things around the key deliverables that are guiding or are the central outcomes of the project. Yellow is around engagement activities and outputs.
Thank you.
Green is for research. Orange is CAPS committee meetings, and then pink along the bottom is project management, which will encourage you to the process. And so this module starts on for June. And so now we're on June 27th, where you can see that first orange square on the left.
Is this the same thing I printed?
And what I would highlight here is that a lot of the activities within the project are front-loaded, a lot of the information gathering and engagement activities for the first 3 modules, or 3 months of the project. And in part, this is because it's really important for the team to gain as much information and local understanding as quickly as possible about this. So I've got 3 colleagues back in Vancouver who are working away on this, and what I'll be continuing to do as well. The other really important thing early on in this project is to engage an array of stakeholders and residents here in Superior. So this first trip has been a great opportunity to meet with a number of important stakeholders who have pretty passionate and strong ideas about what can be included here, and just a very useful way of moving from desk research and scrolling through Google Maps into what projects may, what actually is occurring on the ground here. The next big important step is coming up in the latter half of July, where we'll be conducting a well-being workshop, and you are at least invited to attend this, which will be a roughly 4-hour workshop where we're going to kind of drill into some of the key activities. That's followed by Superior Spectacular, where we will have a pop-up, and the intent in our pop-up is to demonstrate what placemaking can be, and to use it as an opportunity to gain information from people who may not attend events like this, meetings like this, but ensuring that at some fun event we're able to get input from an array of people. And in doing so, we have some ideas coming together, but they will be on the creative side and result in what I think is going to be some eye-catching outputs that you would not typically think of when you think public engagement. And then the following week, so shortly after Superior Spectacular, we'll be doing a Happy City Talk where we give some examples from around the world, highlight what we're learning here, and get feedback from folks who are attending, and including a few other activities that we're still working out. And you'll note that most of the research is done by the end of August, or I guess early September because of the non-28-day approach. And then we're starting to use that to inform what the plan is going to look like. And the only research that goes on beyond that is around the economic impact analysis, while on the engagement side, a really important part is digital engagement. So we're going to try to make engagement as fun as possible so that we can get as many people out and taking part in it. But sometimes it's just not possible. Maybe you've got kids or work 2 jobs or just really busy. So together with the Town of Superior, there'll be a digital engagement component where people can log onto the website and use that as a way of providing input on the plan. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit more shortly. The other key engagement activity will be in mid-November. So we'll have gathered all of our research and the majority of our input, and we'll be using that to draft the master plan, and that will be occurring primarily in September and October. And by the end of October, we'll have a draft master plan that we'll share with you and city staff and the public. We'll take the feedback we get during this to help refine the plan, present to you again in December, and then take the time in that final phase to kind of work through some of the remaining issues and present to the board trustees towards the end of January. I think one key question that I have for you right now is, I noticed that the final Thursday in October was the 31st, which is Halloween. Yeah. And it may have been that there's simply 5 Thursdays in October, so it's not an issue, but I'm guessing that a lot of you have places you'd rather be, and adorable children to give candy to, or houses to protect from hooligans.
It's our 3rd meeting that we have to change.
So you have noted it as October 24th. There's flexibility on our side from that, but just something to keep in mind.
I'm sorry, you adjusted.
Actually, the 24th is the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we're good.
All right. So no adjustments necessary.
But you can log in and show us what your Halloween costume is.
Well, I think there are potentials for other engagement with the town board, and that may be digital and that may be in person, but there are still, I think, quite a few things to figure out around that. The key thing is that we want to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to review the plan with enough time to make adjustments, and that everybody's kept informed of the progress that's being made. And I think there are some opportunities in terms of informing others beyond the group that the CAPS committee can play a really important role around. Since we'll be meeting on a monthly basis, I think during some of these meetings we can talk about information that could be shared either among other groups that you think are relevant, or in at strategic moments, information that you could share with the trustees as well. So, there's a lot of dates and figures here. Does anything immediately stand out to you? Do you have any questions about how this process is set to unfold?
How are you doing the well-being workshop that's in July?
So that'll be in person. A colleague and I will be here. We'll be inviting a number of key stakeholders. So this is not a public event, simply because you can only have so many people sitting around small tables working, and we only have so many people that can come down to take part in it. So we're going to determine the total number of participants that we can have for that. But then it'll be about a 4-hour workshop where we will review the well-being principles that we're using to guide the project, and then conduct a series of activities where we're gaining information about what placemaking can be used for here. We'll have done another month worth of research before that occurs. So we'll be coming with more targeted questions that we'll seek to answer. We'll be giving you some inspiration to kind of go off from other places, and we'll be coming out with some concrete outcomes for where priorities lie, and again, identifying the sites of opportunity in the near future.
At this well-being workshop?
Yes.
Where do you, the community engagement, where is that? Where we do let people know, and they come and they can do their Post-it notes, they can do all that kind of stuff. Where is that?
Sure. So actually that fits in really well with the communications plan, which I can dig into a little bit more here. The objectives here are to inform residents and invite people to events, gain input on the master plan and share outcomes, encourage feedback, and activate residents, an array of residents, as placemakers. We're going to use the communications plan to create a made in Superior plan that really harnesses the town's strengths and elevates local identity. And in doing so, we're going to make our best efforts to support economic growth and keeping an eye on the downtown Superior plan.
So we don't know exactly when that is?
What the plan is?
No, when this communication with the town of Superior residents, do we know when that is?
So that is, there's a digital element, so we'll be doing approximately 6 weeks of digital engagement. There will be the pop-up where people are being informed of that. There will be the Happy City Talk, which is tentatively set for July 23rd. And so these will be 2 in-place or in-person activities, plus this digital element, plus the stuff that has taken place this week, where we've been talking with some of the key stakeholders that have been identified early on. And then, of course, once the plan is drafted, everyone will have another opportunity to provide input in November.
I still feel like I'm missing something. When we did the Northwest Superior Sub-Area Development Plan, we actually had, anyone was welcome, and they brought out their ideas, and this is what they liked in this area, similar to this type of thing. So I see the digital engagement up here, and you're doing the talk in July. How are we including, really actually physically including residents so they can say to us, it's really important that we have X?
Sure.
I just want to make one comment and then I'll let him answer. They have their own method of reaching the community, so what you may have seen in the past is not necessarily what we're doing here. I don't think one of their proposed community engagement strategies is using sticky notes and things like that on big boards and putting up, traditionally, city planning type boards and having people come and put dots on them. I don't think that's one of their strategies, but I think he could answer that. But I wanted to just comment, this is going to be a very different engagement strategy than you've seen before.
Yeah, so I think a couple of the key pieces here are occurring during the pop-up. So I think one of the things that we were brought in for was to do something a little bit different that might draw a crowd that wouldn't typically attend public meetings. So we're still working out the details for what is going to be included in the pop-up, but a couple of the activities that are tentatively slated, and some of it is around just being able to create it and do so on the budget that we have, is around having a giant map of Superior on a hard board where we've included basically a grid of screws and some very colorful string where you can map your favorite routes through town and identify specific locations that are important to you for these activities. It'll be a very, say, like reverse color map where it's dark and kind of minimal detail, so that the outcome of it is actually like an attractive piece that might serve as public art in an indoor setting somewhere within Superior. The other thing that we're looking at in that regard is to have a photo booth where we take a series of backgrounds from the town. So some of you might have noticed that I was taking my camera out and taking photos of the landscapes over the last couple of days. The idea is that we have, say, a couple of the green spaces, and they will be more illustrative than, to say, in Purple Park is this, in Community Park is this, because you can only have so many moving backgrounds. Give people the opportunity to stand in front of them with different props that can be used to illustrate what could occur in these places. Have photos taken, and we'll print them out so that everybody gets a physical copy that they can take home, and we'll also have a board where we're putting them up. Then the Happy City Talk, there's going to be another piece that we're still in discussion around of what kind of feedback we'll include there. I mean, the question and answer is part one, and I think we'll include a physical piece, which could be cards where people are sharing their aspirations for our review, as well as the well-being workshop with these targeted stakeholders to help carry the plan forward.
When you say targeted stakeholders, do you mean just the 6 stakeholders that have been targeted so far?
No, so in the well-being workshop, we'll have 24 to 32 participants. I think you will be invited to this. There will be, there'll be some town staff, there'll be some of the stakeholders that we've interviewed over the last little while.
The majority of the people who will be coming to that meeting are other advisory committee members. There are already people engaged in town working on their own various areas that we hope creative placemaking will help inspire them in their work. So as the really town leadership appointed by the trustees, they're really the best people to go through the well-being workshop. Will help inform the work they do in the future, and it'll get a lot of us on the same page about what this creative placemaking means and what our strategies will be.
So along those lines, is there a published list of the stakeholders? I know several of the board members have had some concerns about it being a really limited pool, and there hasn't been anything published to show. I mean, it looks like the interviews are wrapping up next week, but I think there were several board members who said that they wanted that stakeholder list to be bigger, and I'm not sure what happened with that feedback.
And do you mean Board of Trustee members?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So one piece of information is that we hadn't publicly published that list. It wasn't part of the strategy for this planning process. If that's something the trustees would like, we'd be happy to put that online. That list was originally developed based on the type of representation that Happy City felt would be helpful in their learning process. So we have in the proposal that's approved by the board to have 6 stakeholder interviews. The representation is economic development, the Chamber of Commerce as directed by the trustees. We have historical context, so people who are involved with the knowledge base from the past. And that list is circulated, but it hasn't been finalized. We were thinking that would be a small group of maybe 2 or 3 people that would be interviewed. But again, the input on that historical representation is open for discussion.
So it looks like the interviews are supposed to finish next week, is that accurate? Based on
No, just the economic development, the Chamber of Commerce, Manager Magley, and the mayor. Those 4 have been interviewed.
And the youth leadership.
And the Youth Leadership Council. So the historical representation has not begun or even been coordinated yet. And then in addition to that, we've been emailing each other, the CAPS committee, back and forth over the last week or so, coming up with ideas of other outreach that could be more, whether it's a focus group or whether it is additional interviews and those sorts of things. We haven't determined how to approach that yet. And that's a conversation that we'll have with Mitchell here tonight at this meeting. So if that's something you guys want to discuss now, we can do that, or we can let Mitchell finish his presentation, and then we can begin with adding additional strategies or making comments on what he's proposed, and then make revisions as needed.
I'd say go ahead, and then when you get to the public communications plan, maybe that's an appropriate place to insert that.
Well, so this is the communications plan that we're going through?
Oh,
There
there's
are
a
more
page in
portions
here
to
that
it.
says public communication plan. Okay. Because I do think that in terms of those stakeholders and how this is basically progressing is almost a whole town. I mean, this is the town of Superior. It's not CAPS committee, whatever. It's everyone being engaged. And I think it's important to have that level of transparency, that these people were the initial stakeholders and why they were chosen, and then how you're going to subcategorize that. Just let people know in town, basically, so that they feel they have a voice to be able to say, okay, when we want some type of a placemaking event and what's important to us, they've been able to say that. So it's coming through on official forums, not coming through on Facebook, not coming through on the CAC, whatever that might be, that they actually are transparent so they can have a voice.
I hear what Laura was saying, and I am disappointed that there isn't someone that's more of a cultural activities leader in our community that's being consulted, since it's, that's being included, since it is a cultural arts master plan. It's not like the town of Superior's economic development plan. It seems to be not enough creative person input.
Well, that is what you guys are for. You are the cultural leaders, arts and culture leaders of this town, and you're meeting monthly with Happy City. You did personal tours with him yesterday, so the cultural arts representation is all of you. And if there are any other artists or creatives you would like him to talk to, we could certainly, again, add to his scope of work so that you can reach out to those people. The hope is that those kinds of people will be invited to these public gatherings so they can provide their input. But for the proposal and the cost estimate, we were only approved to do 6 interviews. And those are the personal interviews, whether it was 3 people or 1 person at a time. There's only 6 interviews.
And I understand that, and I guess I just wish that we had, if we are the Cultural Arts Committee, that we actually had some input on who those 6 people were that were chosen. I think a lot of us are disappointed in that choosing, and to hear now that we might be able to add more people if we add more money. If that's the case, that's really disappointing.
6 isn't a huge number, but being that, like I say, this is cultural arts master plan, I would think that there would be somebody representing the cultural sector being one of those 6.
Right, and that's what you all are for, is
Well,
to
no, we're
represent the
not,
cultural sector.
we're not in the stakeholders, we're,
You are the stakeholders.
We are the stakeholders.
You are the leaders.
We
You're the
are
steering
guiding
committee.
this entire process. We are going to have input every month. He just put up the schedule.
No, we understand that.
We understand that, but
There's a
you're not
label, there's a
understanding.
label put on this that says stakeholders. And yes, we understand that as CAPS committee, we are intimately involved. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's having people outside of us that were interviewed for these positions.
And I think we interrupted, and he was about to, he was explaining all of the opportunities that everyone has to engage in this. So I don't think there's any lack of opportunity for anyone to offer their opinion and what's going forward. So that was what Debbie was trying to get to the bottom of. So let's let him finish the communications piece, and so that everyone is happy and understands that everyone in the town and community is going to have an opportunity to talk with or to engage with Happy City. So let's hear your answer to that.
go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so, I mean, in terms of the targeted stakeholder component, the Wellbeing Workshop is another opportunity to broaden that. So if there are any folks that you think should be included there, we'll do our best to accommodate. We want to make sure that it's an effective process, and so we simply have to limit the number of people that are able to take part. And it also is a bit of a time commitment in that it will be approximately 4 hours. So this is a fairly in-depth piece, whereas if there are other folks that you think are really important here, other cultural leaders who have not participated up to this point, then this will be an opportunity for them. Then, over the course of the project, we have 3 more in-person engagements that are public and open to the town, as well as the digital engagement, which will be an opportunity for everybody to participate online.
I think we're talking weight, the amount of weight that you can give to 30 or 40 people that are coming to your wellbeing workshop is really small compared to the weight of 6 individual people sitting down with you one-on-one and being identified as stakeholders. You see the difference in weight?
I do. At the same time, I think that at that point, we will have more targeted questions about where the plan is going. So in this initial exercise, we're combining the research that we've done with this sort of high-level introduction to the town. So the questions that I'm asking here have thus far, I'd say have, limited direct input into the final master plan compared to the Wellbeing Workshop, where we are, starting to drill into very specific points that are of significant importance and things that are feeding the plan to a greater extent. For instance, these first interviews are not included as one of the key stakeholder pieces, and I can actually touch through on the final feedback of what inputs go into the master plan. This is an exploratory phase, and it would be both challenging and a bit, disrespectful of people's time to have a lot of people kind of sharing their input at this point, where we're still learning a lot about what is going to even be the foundation for this plan. So in terms of the next steps, by July 4th, we'll have a press release for Superior to share as we see fit, and we've in fact drafted that and shared that with the town. We've got digital ads for the activities, as well as some social media content, as well as the invitation text for the Wellbeing Workshop, where the town can circulate as it chooses fit. By July 11th, we'll have the advertisement ready for Superior to share for the Happy City Talk and Q&A and this public event, and the posters that go with it, and flyers that can be handed out during the Superior Spectacular. So we're reaching as broad a group as we can through these activities. And it's important to note that here, Happy City is making recommendations on how the engagement can be conducted, and we'll be running the events ourselves. But the broader communications plan is being filtered through the town, and they'll be deciding how to use the collateral that we're sharing as it's seen fit.
Question, you said by July 4th, that you will have the invitation text for the well-being workshop. Is that something that we could have at our booth?
It's, no, it's, that's, if you look at, the well-being workshop is for the advisory committees.
Oh, okay, yes, that's right, he did say that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And so this is what a poster for the talk may look like. This would go up at Superior Spectacular. We'll have it finalized by the 11th of July. This is what?
So that's open to the public,
Yes.
and it could potentially have a large audience there.
Yes.
Right, that's, yeah, that is.
And that's where you're having that cool big board that could potentially be used as art at some point in time.
Yeah, and these posters will be in place for the Superior Spectacular. And I'll also note here, so at the bottom there, the line saying that can't make it, but we still want to hear from you. The website can be added as well as a QR code to let people reach out in as many different ways as possible.
And this is in addition to you talking to people who are going to be at the main event anyway.
Yes.
So we're capturing a large population.
Should.
So one concern is noticing that the presentation to the town trustees isn't until January. We've run into problems with this with previous projects where the board hasn't been engaged until it's done, and we haven't had an opportunity to get input along the way. I know that's caused some stress in the past. Is there a possibility to engage a little sooner than that?
Yes, so that actually came up today during a meeting with Parks and Rec, noting that perhaps that could be something conducted once the draft master plan is created. So we can circulate that with the trustees and...
So isn't that looks like it's still the November 28th after?
No, the first draft will be ready in October, and I'll be here in Superior presenting to the public as well as the CAPS committee on November 13th and 14th. We could do it prior to that, we could do it during that visit, or we could do it after that.
We discussed with Patrick Hammer today that perhaps it would be the end of October or just before the November 13th meeting, just depending on when your meetings line up, where he may be here in person on one of your meetings, or he may do it by video. And then also, we discussed today with Patrick that the CAPS committee would meet with you over the next few months, whether it's monthly or every other month, we're not sure, but to give you a personal update on the status and things that are, progressing, so that you would get a regular update from CAPS, and then some input time with Happy City prior to the November 13th public presentation of the draft plan.
So, I think that's great if we can get something in that fall timeframe, but I think really even sooner, the bulk of the activities are happening in the July and August timeframe, and there isn't any opportunity for the board to weigh in that.
There might not be anything to weigh in on, because I think most of that's engagement, is feedback.
But be part of the process, is that what you're hoping?
Yeah,
Well, so here's one thought. So I was looking at the well-being workshop, and the Superior Youth Leadership has already been a stakeholder. They've been interviewed, essentially. So can we pull those 25 people off and invite the board into the well-being workshop? Or is that not an appropriate?
Well, one thing, I would hate to invite all our advisory board, advisory committee members, and then just tell the youth committee that they're not allowed to come.
So they get two opportunities to weigh in.
Well, this well-being workshop is different than what they discussed the other night at the meeting. So if we were able to give 2 or 3 or 4 youth advisory, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting the name of their committee. The Leadership Council, give 2 or 3 of them the opportunity to attend so that they can report back, then that would be better than excluding them.
Well, yeah, it just feels like that they have had a substantial voice, but I understand there's a difference.
They're
But this could be a way that we could keep the numbers down, but also then include the board, because I think part of it is them understanding not just by an update, but being part of it as much as they possibly can.
Sure, yeah, and that's a great idea to have the trustees attend if they would like to. And again, I don't think we should exclude the Youth Leadership Council.
I just was trying to.
But if we could figure out, maybe we invite a certain number from each committee, so that there's not, let's say, 20 people from the Youth Leadership Council and only one from Historical Commission. So maybe we could have more of a targeted approach where we actually have certain numbers of people from each committee sign up.
So maybe stepping back, because I'm not fully understanding, what is the difference in purpose between the stakeholder interviews and the type of input you're looking for during that workshop?
So stakeholder interviews was an initial scoping exercise. I don't know that much about Superior, and I was excited to like build on the desk research that we've been doing and Google Maps analysis that we've done to learn a little bit more.
And is there a reason the board members weren't interviewed for that, like we did with the economic development consultant?
May I answer that? The mayor represented the Board of Trustees, and he was interviewed yesterday.
Okay.
And to the well-being workshop, it sounds like if all the committees said everybody attend, it would be a really huge and probably less effective event. So the idea of balancing it so that representatives from each committee could attend would be, I think, the best approach here. And in terms of who would be representing each, I think that's up to each committee. Happy City is happy to ensure that that balance takes place, and we can liaise with the town around that. And our next CAPS committee meeting isn't until afterwards, but even before that, I mean, I'll be back by July, so the Wellbeing Workshop is July 17th. We can give you the information about who is set to attend and the logic behind those selections. But I think a balanced group that represents as many of these different interests is really important, and that includes the trustees, and that includes the different committees.
I'm going to stick my neck out as a trustee too. It kind of comes back to the comment that Debbie was making, and that was related to public engagement. I only have a little bit of a concern that as much as we all really want the main event to be a smash, it may not be. We may not have massive attendance. We know we'll have massive attendance, for example, at the Chili Fest. So that's the only thing that concerns me a little bit, is that we might be doing this at an event that would have lesser attendance, A, because of time. July 20th, Deanna already said there's problems with being able to get food trucks because there's a lot of events occurring that day. I know for a fact I probably won't be able to go because I have to go to a funeral that day, a memorial service that day. So that's the only concern I have. People tend to have Chili Fest on their calendar. Just want to throw that out there as if you really want to reach the public and have them learn more about this in a public way, as opposed to just doing it digitally. But we also know the audience that will come to the spectacular, but it just might not be, if you really want to engage people, it may not be on this event.
To build on that a sec, is at these public events, you need to decide whether or not you want to speak to the residents of Superior. Chili Fest is heavily attended by those outside Superior, so you got to know who you're talking to and who you're getting comments from, and who you want them from.
That is all important considerations. With the way the timeline of the project was organized and where that input becomes most effective, there becomes a risk that people are providing information that is having less potential to inform the plan at that later date. Now, we can always assess after Superior Spectacular and the event the following week whether there's a need for further in-person engagement at this time, keeping in mind that we'll come back in November for further input where we can adjust the plan.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, I appreciate that feedback. We don't know that. The board certainly don't know that. And so, Laura and I are just being a little bit protective of you guys right now because we've seen what's happened when the Northwest Superior plan, that committee did a lot of work and it kind of blew up as it progressed because the board wasn't engaged. So we just want to make sure
this Northwest engagement process a little bit. Could you fill me in on it a little?
It was a different sort of a process that was talking about planning for an area of town, but the dilemma was that the board wasn't kept engaged along, not all of the board. Some of us knew a lot more about what was going on because we participated, but when it finally came to the board, it probably didn't receive the best reception. It's going to be a little bit different because this is a community-wide activity, but I just want to make sure that this process goes through and has all the engagements so that the board doesn't go crazy. But it's making sense what you did, but I do believe you've got to engage the board earlier in January.
I just want to add, the Northwest Area Plan is an area of town that was never planned. Most of Superior, Rock Creek, Coal Creek Crossing, these developments came later and they're planned developments. So they were planned out, plans came in front of the trustees and rules were followed. The rest of this area, there aren't really plans. It's the original platted lots, it's areas of Boulder County open space that came into Superior and things like that. And so the idea was, let's look at this area and try and create a plan to help it instead of having it implode. And so that was the initial idea behind why this plan was conceived.
And in terms of engagement, there were
It was
a lot
huge.
of meetings.
There was
A
great
lot of
It was
meetings.
huge community
Probably
engagement.
several, I attended several myself
Mhm.
over the months. So there was a lot of community feedback, and I've been to Post-it note meetings, and I've been to all kinds of meetings like that. They had special meetings for the business owners. They had all kinds of meetings that were happening, so.
And I don't know, obviously I wasn't there either for that process, so I don't know at all how it went. But what I do know is that when we put this RFP together for this process, we know we had a limited budget. And so we worked with the top 4 proposers to reduce their scope so we could fit within our budget. And we were only able to fit in a certain amount of engagement and for the price tag. So I just wanted to make sure that you all know that we based this process on the budget.
And so I think that, the contract certainly shows it's either one-on-one or group interviews. It sounds like a lot of those were one-on-one, where if we had done group, we could have included more people. But also, I would just note that that's not something that came up in the board meeting when we approved this, that there were any concerns that we were cutting back the number of stakeholders. I certainly can't speak for the rest of the board, but I know that if Happy City was concerned that we didn't have enough stakeholders, I personally would have approved more budget for it. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but that was never raised as a concern.
It wasn't a concern for Happy City or staff that there were only 6 stakeholder interviews in the budget. It also wasn't a concern that some were one-on-ones. So for example, for the person who would represent economic development, there's one person in particular, Adam Hughes. So we were directed by one trustee specifically at the board meeting that we needed to speak to Adam. So we used Adam as the economic development representative. There was no one else that we could think would be a better person to discuss economic development, but Adam. So I just want to give you an example of why his interview was a one-on-one and not a group interview.
And I just want to say, I didn't bring up the fact that we had so many meetings because I felt that that's what we should do here. But I'm surprised to hear that the board wasn't involved, because there was a lot of involvement that happened with that plan. But it sounds to me like there's just many months of digital engagement, so maybe that's where we're planning on doing that. Is that going to be mostly in the form of surveys, or what kind of engagement?
Yeah, so I can actually get to that in a second. So this is just what another potential advertisement could look like that could be used on social media or in local papers. So for digital engagement, which is slated to begin on July 19th, and will be run by the Town of Superior, Happy City recommends using the MindMixer platform. It's a very user-friendly platform where you can include different kinds of questions and visual elements. it works best, we find, when you combine multiple choice, open answer, sort of choice between two items, and includes some visuals. A really important part of this is going to be that we follow these rounds of engagement. You know, often you have an event and you invite people out and they have shared something and they don't really know how that's ever been used to inform the plan. And so specifically with the digital element, the timing works out really well that we can include some of the feedback that we get during these in-person events. And the plan here is that we follow this sort of waterfall approach, where we have the first round of questions, and we suggest that the first round would be open for probably 2 weeks, a little bit longer than some of the other ones, to give people time to understand what's going on, and make sure that there's that opportunity to give that first input. From there, we'll do some analysis. The town can put the results together, and we can use that to assess what we think is being said. We then take what we learned during the first round to then inform the following round. So to say, if one question was around ranking priorities in terms of what placemaking activities are most important to people in Superior, we can then say, we understand that these 3 are your top priorities. What if you had $100,000? How would you balance the budget between them? Or do you prefer, in terms of visual art, a mural or a statue? So the idea is that each round we're looking at it and we say, we hear you, now let's go a little bit deeper into this. And we'd suggest that each round have a set number of questions that isn't too long, because it's best if each person who responds has answered all of them rather than just sort of picking the ones they think are important. And in using these multiple rounds, we get a little bit more information. And while there are multiple rounds, even if someone doesn't participate in the first round or say skips the second, everybody's welcome to add their input throughout. And in using this approach, we also get these quantifiable metrics that say, this is what's important to Superior, and this is how we use it to inform the plan.
Yeah, this is actually very cool. So Dina will be running this, the communications plan, because I think one of the pitfalls that happen is we have this from, when was it, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, or something. They actually reached out to the residents and said, what is important to you in terms of, for the most part, Parks and Rec kind of thing, but one of the big things was community gathering places, that kind of stuff, or libraries, whatever it might have been. So by doing this, and if Dina does this in the town, then we're going to have a really structured way for the town, the Board of Trustees, for CAPS, to be able to say, this is what's important to our residents, basically. The other thing you probably want to use, or be cautious using the word placemaking, because no one's going to have a clue.
I think each round of engagement will be at the top.
There will be some kind of wordsmithing that if it's going out to the whole community or whatever it is, so they can respond, they have no clue what placemaking is. So
that is a really valid point, and one that we...
Tell us to be like, they're doing what?
Yeah, and so I mean, including at the top, both a brief definition and what we're thinking about within that, but then also links if you'd like to learn more, will be a really important step. So making sure that that there is this common understanding of what can be included in that, recognizing that if we're looking at 5 years and a reasonable budget, there are opportunities to incorporate a lot of different elements in there.
And then it looks like, the talk in early August or July, that's a public talk. And then also this in November, that's also a public meeting there.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're all kind of bookended there.
Oh, the talk is public?
Yes.
Okay.
And if the hotel is open in July, we may have, they're very excited to use that space.
The lights are on.
And you sort of see people in the windows
The
sometimes.
lights were on last night. It was lit up last night, so it's close. Yeah, I like that there's analysis after each, because I do think that lots of times you just, you answer surveys and it just goes out into the papers, and so
And you
don't
kind of want to
it
hear
going
the
to the
results of it.
Yeah.
What did people say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
that's a really good piece. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that, because too often there are engagement processes where you just kind of put it into the black box and it disappears. And so to be able to tie this back, both throughout this process, but then especially with the draft master plan, to say, we heard this, this is what it means in this plan. And this makes it a very direct way of doing that, in addition to these opportunities in person. And all of these parts are very important. Yes, and we'll have this workshop and ensuring the balanced representation among committees and the board. And if there are other suggestions, then I need to take those into consideration as well. Follow that up with the Superior Spectacular pop-up. And this to us will be a good opportunity to have people involved in this approach by actually making this map that I detailed before, by having their photos taken. They get to take something home, but we also learn a lot about what type of spaces are prioritized. And we'll have these, if you've ever been to a kind of photo booth, you have these different things that you can hold up that are typically humorous or entertaining. In this case, we'll include things that may be included in the plan. And how exactly we're going to do that, whether it's Velcroed onto the photos themselves, whether people are holding things, whether there is some things that are physically present in the space, such as colorful chairs. We're working out the details around that. But we'll ensure that we're capturing, in a very literal way, what placemaking could mean to different people here. And follow that up with this talk, using this now as in combination with the digital element. And there's been discussion about adding a piece that we can also use to solicit feedback less directly. And so I think including some feedback cards or cards where people can write their ideas down rather than just speak to the public is one approach. And we'll work with Parks and Rec Department to determine anything else that may be included within this. And so this is the communications plan, the timeline for it. And I think here the key pieces are that we have this digital engagement running from mid-July onwards, that we have these in-person events in July and November, and that we're able to share the information as it's coming in. And so we've created these initial media components, but we can create more throughout. So not only do people have the chance to put their feedback in and see where it has been reflected within the plan, but there's also opportunities to just keep informed in between these engagement activities, so specifically in October and through the fall. Okay, yeah, so they weren't replacing actually, they're the same. So you've got the full presentation, I think?
Yeah. I just wanted to be sure your two handouts were making sense. It looked like Debbie was trying to find
Well, this
some
is the one
pages.
you sent that you wanted us to, review before we came.
Yeah, and that page, this page is.
It's the same.
Yeah. Here's the piece in back. No, mine's in back. Well, thank you. This is ambitious and hopefully going to be a lot of fun.
I'm glad you feel that way, and we've sought to balance the need for this real engagement and ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to voice their views about what this could be, and that citizen-led component is really important. And we're balancing that with the constraints and realities of this type of project, where there's a certain budget to carry out what this can be, and we try to kind of maximize the impact, picking what we consider to be the most strategic times to carry this forward, and then reflect it back. And so then there's one more piece, unrelated to communications, so if there are any other questions or comments around communications, then perhaps this is a good time to share them. We'll move on to the final piece. Yes?
Will the board see this project timeline before it's approved this spring? Because I think the trustees in attendance have a very valid points they're making. I spent 8 years on this board, and
further, but if they're, getting board trustee members at the workshop is a really important step. And then, if there is something else right around then that you think would be valuable as well, we can look into that as well.
I would really suggest engaging the board members, not just where they get to make one comment during a public workshop, but that you take the time to interview each of the board members and understand their goals.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to comment that we could have incorporated that into the contract had we known that in advance, and we'd be happy to amend the
contract.
contract.
Shows group interviews, and frankly, when reading the contract, I assumed that I would have been included in a group interview.
Right, well, and what I meant to explain is if you would like to do that, we can amend the contract. That's certainly something we can do, to have an interview individually with each trustee, because that wasn't brought up at the board meeting, at the presentation of the contract, that you each wanted an individual interview.
I don't know that everyone wants an individual interview, and I don't know that I need an individual interview, but I think it would be great to include board input. And I didn't specify, you're right, in the meeting. I would have assumed the board would have been one of those group interviews as a whole, and that was an assumption on my part. I think at this point, though, it's important to see what we can do to get that input, to get the input of the CAPS committee as well, which it sounds like maybe we're getting in this forum. But my impression would have been that before a stakeholder list was finalized and those interviews went ahead, that maybe this group could have reviewed, the board could have reviewed, that we could have made sure we had all the stakeholders.
So I'm sorry, I disagree. So what Happy City is doing is they're doing geographical analysis, they're doing demographic analysis, they are doing so much analysis that they're going to compile, and then they're going to get community input, and then they're going to present something, which I agree should be sooner than later. And once you see that, if you think this is horrible, then yes, then the trustees would speak up, and that's when you have the opportunity to say, you're going in the wrong direction, this is not going to be a good idea. As far as the stakeholders go, he said it was just a snapshot. The stakeholder, I think, is a misnomer. The stakeholder interviews doesn't mean that their opinion is any more important than your opinion.
That's the definition of a stakeholder.
I know, and that's why I think it's a misnomer. So
I agree that was a misnomer.
it wasn't, and I agree with you, it is an unfortunate word. So they're not saying that these 6 interviews are more important than what the trustees have to say. I mean, absolutely not. So he was just saying it was a short interview just to get a snapshot. They're just in the snapshot phase right now. And so I think for the trustees, I think your input is going to be a lot more important when they have gathered a lot of information and they're putting it all together, right? So that's my opinion. I understand, stakeholders has freaked everybody out. So I think you just need to calm down and know that you're going to have as much input and say as you want or need. So
if that's not happening though until October, that's after the bulk of this Gantt chart right here.
Well, and I mentioned it's not October. CAPS is going to be giving you guys touch points every month. As I mentioned, Patrick Hammer suggested today to Happy City, so he did not have time to put that square on every month in this presentation. That's why we verbally just mentioned CAPS will be giving you a touch point monthly about the process, input, status, etc. And then we're offering to have Happy City meet with you directly, whether it's in person or by video conferencing before November. And that could be any time in October, it could be any time in September. I mean, there's a certain point at which it's a little too early, but I do think that we could accommodate something before November when they come to speak to the public.
I just think it would make Happy City's life easier. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if Happy City is the consultant for the master plan, and they're just, bringing in those board of trustees, and from my perspective, I know at least 4 out of the 7 were elected because of this whole, events and what are we gonna do so people are engaged and how's downtown gonna be successful and what are we gonna do to bring in kids and all this kind of stuff. So I think that it's easier for you to bring on the trustees and how.
Sure, well, and we're not
Tina's doing
disagreeing with that.
so.
I was never disagreeable that we could do that. So I'm just trying to tell you that that is what we can do. And we just have to figure out the timing of that based on the trustees' meetings and their schedule.
And we can take out the word stakeholder, because when you said stakeholders, I actually went online and my impression of stakeholders, I think, was kind of very different than what maybe, it was used. Because stakeholders is usually a pretty, when you're talking about corporations and stuff, it's a pretty cut and dry evaluation at a corporate level. And I'm like, so maybe they just need to kind of use a different word.
Thank you. That's helpful. I think your routing is also really helpful. And perhaps in accommodating that, we could do, I'd say, like Skype type meeting. Perhaps having the whole board participate would be a little bit challenging. We could either do the whole board, or if there are a few people that you think would reflect that, and having already spoken with Mayor Folsom, you may be all right on that front.
I mean, I just think if you want the whole board to vote and approve the master plan, you need to talk to the whole board.
Laura, are you saying though that you don't think that they should move forward with this plan at all until the board has seen it and reviewed it and approved it, that this plan needs approval?
Not necessarily. I think it's more just that this plan frankly took me a little bit by surprise, that we're already, doing things in this time frame when we as a board haven't heard anything on this since the meeting when we approved the contract.
Okay, so you're saying that the board needs to see this plan, review it, and basically feel good about it before it moves forward?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think that's sad. I mean, if that's what you're telling me, then I don't think you have any respect for the process. I'm actually very upset by you implying that this plan may not be successful because the entire board has not been interviewed. I mean, we represent the community and we are going to be giving constant feedback to the board, and if you don't have, and please come to all the meetings so that you can be part. He's giving you engagements. He's giving you lots of opportunities to be engaged. And if the board is not paying attention until November, then that's sad. So
I don't think it's a matter of not paying attention. I mean, in our defense, we haven't received any communications on any of this. We don't have notes from the May meeting, for example, to even know that this is moving forward. We haven't received dates in July to save the date and come to this. We didn't receive a date yesterday knowing that the tour was happening.
yeah, it's very fast. I mean, we've just gotten it too. So
I've never had a consulting contract be executed and implemented this fast. This has been a very fast process. To provide some info for you, the May meeting notes aren't supposed to be approved by the CAPS committee until tonight. We don't ever put those online until they're approved. Karen might have some insight on, we've been providing weekly updates. Is it weekly updates? Mm-hmm. Whenever there's a meeting that's happened, we provide at least like a paragraph that explains the conversation. And I know that I've included conversations around the master plan process and status. And I'd be happy to provide you with things that we have sent to the board as a complete packet if you'd like.
Well, and I will say, at the board meeting when the contract was agreed upon, you did give some rough outlines of dates. And it was pretty clear that it was a fast process.
Yeah. Let's just go. My expertise overlaps with this type of management you're doing. But so let's go to the broad perspective. Money's an object here, right? There's a limited budget. Time frame's an object. It seems to me that it would be wise for you to consider. Let's get rid of the word stakeholder and go to visionaries, right? When you identify this core group of people, on it should be the visionaries for the town.
I wouldn't even call it that. I don't think that they're that level. I think it's the wrong word. I think
it was
Well, he
just
just said,
background.
Scoping, like,
yes.
Well, and this is,
I'm sorry.
there are people who, a lot of this town is just disinterest.
I do think people
Right,
use it
because
to say
that's
what
just
it
how
was.
towns are. And then there's an interested core, or a core who would be interested if they knew the process was going on. And they would generate terrific ideas, et cetera. And it feels correct that you're getting some representation from each of our advisory committees because they're engaged. You're going to get representation from this group because they're obviously 100% engaged here. The group of people who is the most engaged in this town is your sitting board of trustees. The mayor is one voice of that, but you have 6 other trustees who are the most committed, engaged people in this community. So I'm just wanting you to be aware of that thought as you plan for success of this process.
Great, thank you. And perhaps this is something for Parks and Rec and the Board of Trustees to work out, and then we can figure out if there is another opportunity and how that can be done.
Right, yeah, I mean, we're happy to stop the process today before it's gone too far and readjust and make new plans and amend the contract if we need to.
I don't know if throwing Kevin Ryan's name out there makes any sense, but Laura, I don't know if Kevin Ryan, if I should mention Kevin Ryan, but he's always in on our meetings.
Right.
And we are constantly running things by him, and on a number of things, including this, we say, do you think that we're on the right track? And he said, the Board of Trustees trust you to make the right decision. You are all doing a great job. You're on the right track.
So it's kind of a mixed message.
So he's the liaison. He's the one that can tell you as a board member.
Agreed, so I think that maybe if we have some missing communication channels between us.
Yeah, and maybe we just need to not stop the process, but just make sure that more information is getting out. And that if there are opportunities for more direct trustee engagement, maybe it's a pop-up specifically for them to understand placemaking, I don't know, but ways to really make sure that we're taking this great plan, but also making sure that we're enhancing it with some of the ideas that the committee feels are important as well.
I don't think any of us, at least I'm not saying stop the process. I got no concern with the process. I mean, I think it's really fast, but you want to get this done quickly because it will help direct your work going forward. All we're saying is you need to involve the Board of Trustees. I just mentioned to Laura, there is almost nothing on our agenda on July 8th. I mean, we've looked at it.
Is there a work session?
I don't think
It's just a meeting at the moment.
So is it possible to have?
Because you came to a work session or you just came and presented this and just said, hey, here's the timeline, and gave the board the opportunity to see what it is. I'm just trying to make sure that nothing goes astray for you guys because the board is not aware of what's going on. And Melinda, I understand where you're coming from, but literally, I have been to meetings for the town of Superior 6 out of 10 nights. So it's hard for us to stay on top of everything and to have, I happen to come here tonight out of interest. So we really need to rely on you when it's something important to come and talk to us about it. We're not going to stop the process. We just don't want it to get too far down the road and the trustees, because this is an area that is very exciting and of interest to us. It has nothing to do with not trusting you, but we are also the people who are ultimately responsible to the town of Superior to make sure that everybody's engaged and they buy into what we do.
I agree.
Okay, so I want you to understand where we're coming from as trustees. We just want to make sure we know what's going on. So maybe there's a, I mean, I think Laura's gonna write Matt and say, hey, Matt, is there any chance we can have this presentation on our
She's already
agenda
sent
on
it.
Monday?
I did.
And I'm gonna chime in and say, hey, if there's any way that can happen, now, we're not necessarily saying that you need to come, but.
But we can have CAPS representation if
Yeah,
Dina's
CAPS
available,
could be
you know,
there,
I mean, it
or,
would,
you know,
I
a
think it's a
member of
great
CAPS
idea.
could present this and give us a sense of what's going on. Because this is, I mean, seriously, the board invested a lot of money in CAPS this year, so we're very invested in wanting to see you be successful.
Well, and if we're, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but if we're successful, then you're bringing all this placemaking and all this excitement and activity to the residents of Superior, which they feel they've had a voice in, then that's huge. So it's not just CAPS, it's really everything that's funneling through basically kind of a whole new town and a turning place.
And people talk to us because they know who we are, unfortunately. They see us in the grocery store. We're at Riverbend for an engagement. And Melinda, you and I were talking to somebody who knew nothing about the spectacular coming up. So you really want the board to feel engaged and brought into this process so we can help be your apostles on it also.
I appreciate you guys coming tonight. This is very helpful.
No, you don't.
No, it is. I mean, it's important to understand this process and also to understand sort of the organization within the town. Because, you know, I'm new here, and we are trying to understand how the system operates in addition to understanding sort of where the aspirations lie. So I think this was really, really helpful that you come and kind of raise these points. And I recognize that it's important for the board to have some say in all of this. And, you know, the idea is that there's buy-in among as broad an array of people as possible. And so that all sort of fits together. And we're here to support that.
All right, so next steps, because it's
So, yeah.
past our bedtimes.
Yeah, so I had one last point, which is around sort of how Happy City organizes our projects. We've identified through a decade of research these key elements for well-being in urban settings and specifically around placemaking. So these key elements are sociability, joy, health, equity, ease, resilience, and meaning and belonging. And so we've gathered evidence to support all of this, but then the really important part is then applying this in a way that fits with what we're hearing in the town. And so we've drafted these draft principles for what that means. And the idea is that this will guide the process as well as what comes out of the plan. Recognizing what time it is, we'd just like to check and see if it's all right if we go through this. I mean, people may have to go, and we all have printouts of this, but it is something to review because it is informing the process and the master plan. Would it be all right if we went through this right now?
I'm good.
Yeah, we're good. We're just worried about your time.
No, I mean, you can stay all night.
In that case.
No, not all night.
And I want to note that these are the draft principles. They're the high-level guide to this project. There is opportunity to tweak the language, both here, and I would say up until, if we can do it in the next week, that would be very helpful. This is an important element, but not one that needs to be set in stone at this moment. And I'll defer to Parks and Rec about exactly how that final approval will take place. But we'll go through them and we'll see. So step by step here, so in sociability, when we're looking at that, the aim is to promote positive social interaction and supportive relationships and facilitate trust-building encounters among the array of Superior residents and visitors. So in terms of the process, examples of this are in having public engagement activities that are fun and a little outside what would typically occur at a public meeting. So the Superior pop-up is one example of this, ensuring that we're able to attract people, both because they care about the town, but also because it's just a fun chance to give their input. As well as on the relationship side, because relationship building is a really important part of this process. So having the time to speak with people at these events, to have folks here leading us around, all very important. In terms of the plan, this also means ensuring that the placemaking outputs from this are able to support positive social interaction and create these encounters that support people. So an example could be in creating a mural that is only complete when 3 people are standing in it. So you get this kind of chance to be a part of the art that goes into it. There are an array of other examples, but I think one is going to suffice for now. For joy, it's around maximizing opportunities for joy, comfort, and satisfaction, and minimizing pain, discomfort, and frustration. So we're definitely thinking about that in terms of how we are conducting the outreach, in terms of the placemaking outputs. Joy and satisfaction are really, really useful pieces. So thinking of things that might initially be unexpected and spark a bit of surprise in a positive way comes to mind. All this sort of fits in with a health-related piece, which is enable, encourage, and promote well-being, healthy lifestyle choices, and active mobility. And I must say that it seems like this is something that is more easily accomplished in Superior than in some of the places where we work, where there's all sorts of outdoor trails and green spaces. So we have these great assets that can really provide like a very strong foundation for what this might be. On the equity side, ensuring that the creation of placemaking initiatives in public spaces are open to the diversity of Superior's people and that the outcomes welcome and serve all residents and visitors is how we are framing this. And that means ensuring that many different voices are at the table as we're crafting this plan, and that we're able to reflect this openness and create placemaking outputs that support what everybody is feeling a part of. And this fits in really, really well actually with the later on meaning and belonging. So with ease, it's about ensuring safe environments that give people a strong sense of control, comfort, and agency. I think within the events, this is, it's a fundamental goal that everybody feels safe in sharing their views there. And so that's what we're making every opportunity to ensure that these are positive encounters, but also, if you're not comfortable speaking out at an event, we're also making sure that there are other ways for you to participate. In terms of outputs, this can look like many different things, but among other points that we've seen over the last few days are many underpasses. So opportunities to ensure that those are well lit. I understand that most of them have good lighting, but perhaps there's an opportunity to add an artistic element to what that could be. Again, these are the first ideas, and over the last few days we've been hearing a lot of things, and we are crafting our own ideas, but I'm doing my best to not really prescribe what's going on, because we have a lot of learning to do before we reach the point where we really want to be making recommendations on what sort of placemaking initiatives are taken forward. In terms of resilience, it's create a legacy of ecologically, economically, and culturally sustainable communities, programs, and interventions that enable Superior to thrive over the long term. So ensuring that the activities that we're conducting have minimal ecological impact is really important. Considering the long-term success of this program, so we're looking at 5 years, but we want this to be sustained for a long time. And while there is seed funding available, perhaps there are other ways to ensure broader sort of resilient input on what that could be. Thinking a little bit about downtown Superior and the opportunities for placemaking there, and things that may be conducted by private actors as well. And then on the cultural side, it's really about ensuring that an array of people are able to provide input on what is considered in the placemaking initiatives, and that there's buy-in from across the town, as we've seen all these different neighborhoods, and interests may vary across them, but in coming up with ways to craft common understandings and come up with a basis that everybody sort of understands placemaking in Superior. And finally, there's meaning and belonging, and the idea here is to craft a unified town identity and support individual and community efforts to build place attachment, ownership, and pride of place. We've heard quite a bit around these topics over the last few days. We want to make sure that when someone asks where you're from, you're easily and proudly able to say Superior, and folks who are passing by, whether they've noticed it just driving by, or maybe they've come to one of the really nice events that are taking place here, and they know where you meet. And so you have this meaning and belonging for an extended period of time. So these are the draft principles, and you have them printed out as well. If anyone has any comments, suggestions, or questions, I'd love to hear them, and we'll have the opportunity to finalize this over the next week or two.
I love this. To me, this is what residents look and probably understand. You know, that they, how do we achieve that sense of well-being and all these things coming together? That's really cool. And my suggestion, which I love the book, The Happy City. So maybe if we can get some kind of, reach out to the advisory groups and have them read The Happy City, and if they're not readers, then maybe we could do Charles Montgomery's TED Talk on it, so that really you're kind of almost spreading that philosophy and that idea that you're taking cultural arts and events and you're integrating it to the places. And most people don't understand that. So maybe if there's some way that we can do that, I mean.
Absolutely, and within the public talk, this is a key piece.
Oh, so he'll go through, you will go through when Charles Montgomery does his TED Talk, because it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is his thing. It is really this well-being, placemaking, and using that kind of concept. So if there's some way we can get all these advisory committees to like buy in and sit down and talk about this, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I will say that it's Happy City Sing, as a lot of people helped to craft the book and have worked extensively on it for quite a long time. But ensuring that this comes through and that we provide examples from other places we've worked and what that could mean here in Superior really is important. So this talk is a key piece of that. I will be delivering this talk, and I give a lot of them, so I think I'll keep you both.
You and Charles Montgomery are on the same plane, is that what you're saying? You're like one of the same mind. Yeah.
Not quite, but we've worked really hard to craft talks that are both compelling and fit with the interests of the place, and that both entertain and educate the people that are coming to attend them. But we've also spent a lot of time working through this as a team, and we have these different presentation modules that we fit in and then tailor to the local context.
Very cool.
I think this is something that will come through.
That's the July 17th, Happy City Talk.
That's July 23rd.
Oh, wait, July 23rd is the Happy City?
Yes.
The 17th is the well-being workshop.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Happy City Talk for the public.
The 13th.
If we don't know, heaven forbid the board would know it.
So I only have one teeny tiny, so the minimize pain, trauma, discomfort, and frustration, I take out the word pain. It just, like everything else feels so a lot lighter, and you've got pain in the discomfort and frustration, and it just seems a little bit unnecessary, but that's just my personal view.
You think discomfort and frustration is okay?
I just don't think you need the pain.
Sure.
But, and then I don't quite understand under ease, when you say agency, could you define that? Like, what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, so that's how the sense of control that people have over their environment, both in terms of how they're interacting with others, which is where the control piece comes. The agency is the potential to take things forward with that. So within placemaking, the opportunity to be involved in an initiative within the town would be one example of that. And a way that might be carried out into practice would be to develop, say, a neighborhood small grant fund where people could apply for small grants to either conduct, conducting events is probably the most direct way, and that's what we have helped implement elsewhere. But there could be opportunities to take that in another direction. But you basically have the opportunity to help create a sense of place through a direct activity.
Okay, so maybe like slight examples or definitions within the, like you're defining it, but maybe an example to help illustrate it would be helpful as well. Just to maybe not necessarily have to. Does anybody else have other thoughts on this piece.
I just like it, I think people will get that part. Thank you. Tina, do you want us to, on that public talk on July 23rd, maybe if we could do it someplace, you know, like at the elementary, you know, because they're probably not gonna open until right about.
They're supposed to open July 15th.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
was
thinking
hoping
maybe that could be their
the
like.
July 17th meeting, we could use their space.
Well,
And
then you have the July 23rd is
right,
the
both.
talk,
We would do both.
the TED Talk,
Yeah.
basically.
That's our hope, is to do it there if they're
Okay.
ready.
Yeah, and of course, let us know what we can do to help and organize and whatever that might be.
And depending on Parks and Rec capacity and the weather, I mean, if this was outdoors, if we were able to do it, you know, let's see, I guess we'd have to start at 9, which might be excluding some folks. But an outdoor talk is also a possibility, you know, recognizing that there could be some technical constraints as well, just because there are so many great places outdoors here. So there are different options that we could take forward.
Okay.
Trustees, do you have any comments or thoughts here?
You want our maps back?
Oh, yes, I mean, I can grab them as everybody gets out.
So any other questions? Oh, is it, you have more?
This is the last.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But so just, yeah, to note that the next, the steps are developing the next steps we had envisioned are to develop the wellbeing workshop and prepare for that on July 17th, to conduct the pop-up on July 20th, the Happy City Talk and Q&A on July 23rd, in parallel to this, the digital engagement that's taking place, and then to look at research and outreach opportunities. And here, there may be more opportunities for CAPS committee input around some of the research activities. So these are things that we can flag for the next meeting. I don't think we need to prep anything up to that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
I appreciate, you know, having the opportunity to meet with all of you and to really work through this and really support the Parks and Rec. And I did watch the trustee the video when that was going on. So the questions that you had and the enthusiasm you had for it really excited us about coming to work here. And yeah, we can talk about the best ways to involve the trustees before the January.
All right, I think the meeting is adjourned.
How was your electric bike? Did it work?
It was great.